Hello, everybody. This is Tim from IDERA. I have a colleague, John, with me, and we're going to get this started. We're about 3 minutes over. I wanted to give time for everybody to go ahead and connect. Looks like we got a couple people still connecting, so I'll give it just another minute or so before we start. Okay, everybody, it's 5 after. I'm going to go ahead and get this started. As I said before, my name's Tim, and I have a colleague of mine, John, with us today here for this webinar. We're both members of the Solutions Architecture team here at IDERA, and today we're going to be presenting to you a webinar around migrating a database to the Snowflake to the Snowflake platform with ER Studio. I want to call your attention before we start here to the GoToMeeting little applet that you should have on your desktop. There is a section there for questions. John will be trying. You say sound is unintelligible. Can you hear me okay, John?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Tim. It's coming through very clear.
Okay. Okay, so sorry about that, Fred. Hopefully it can clear up on your side. You might have some lag in your connection. You will be sent this recording after. You'll have access to it. The marketing department will see to that for all registered attendees. But I wanted to show your as Fred has already seen here, you have a section in that GoTo applet for questions. Please go ahead and submit your questions. The default's no audio. Go ahead and submit your questions in that area, and John will do his best to answer them as we go along. We'll also pause here and there for some time to answer any questions that may be still lingering. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. Today our webinar goals, just going to go through, as I said, I'm going to show how we can migrate the metadata assets from one database platform to the cloud using Snowflake. We're going to use ER Studio, principally Data Architect, to do this. These are the steps we're going to perform for you. We're going to show you the reverse engineer from Microsoft SQL Server. We're going to show you a little bit about documenting that model that comes back, particularly at the logical model conceptual layer. We're going to be switching to a model that we already have fleshed out that shows a really good view of how that work can be done. Then we're going to forward engineer that model we brought back from SQL Server to Snowflake and show you in Snowflake that database has been created. The next step, we're going to show you how to use the compare and merge utility within Data Architect to propagate any changes you make to the model at the logical or physical level, and how to get those into your physical layer in Snowflake. And then at the very end, we're going to showcase some of the data governance stuff in terms of terms and glossaries to get the full picture of your enterprise data asset initiative. So, and then we're going to follow up some questions. Let's talk a little bit about ER Studio in general. We have ER Studio capabilities here. Data Architect is our principal data modeling application where all your conceptual, logical, and physical data modeling is done. reverse engineering you see in the list there, and compare and merge. Those are the things we're going to be going through in depth in this webinar. The next step up in our architecture is the Team Server repository. That's with our Team Server Pro or Team Server Enterprise versions of ER Studio. That gives you the ability to have your models stored in a repository database that becomes the central source of truth for your models and your metadata objects. You can see there it allows things like model sharing between teammates, data modelers, data architects, model versioning, check in and check out. The next step up from that in our our wedding cake here is the Team Server Core, which allows a web portal to your metadata objects that can then be accessed by a variety of different roles in your organization, and you can see those roles kind of generally listed here, and we'll show you that in the web portal at the end of the presentation. A little bit about what the story we're going to tell today. I talked, I just said about uniting the management information in your data assets. It's all about taking your organization and your physical layers, your physical data assets here in your catalog, and bringing them in and starting to understand information about your data, collecting it via ER Studio Data Architect, getting your physical models, creating logical models at the same time, and then fleshing out those logical models so they're a little more palatable for business users and in a business language that those types of users can understand at a conceptual level. And then again in green, the next step up from that is a connection to your business glossary with terms, so you can start getting not only the taxonomy of the terms of where those data elements are being used in your organization, but also the ontology of the terms, how it breaks down, so what that those individual data items and that metadata means to your organization. We have some useful links here. I'll show this at the end as well. So right now I want to go ahead and jump in to the to Data Architect. Should be able to see that on the screen now. I'm running it, obviously this is in VMware Workstation. What you're seeing now, y'all should be familiar with it, I hope. This is a Data Architect. I just have an open blank new model created open here, Model 1. This is our version 19.1 release, and that's what I'll be working with from today. Real quickly, 18.5 actually brought in our ribbon bar that changes context based upon the option you choose here. You have your model object tree pane. You have your model object canvas where objects can be created and edited. And you have the 4 tabs: data modeling, the data dictionary, data lineage, and macro tabs. So that's kind of the basic layout. It's pretty much been the same except the ribbon bar for a very, very long time. So the first thing I'm going to do for us is jump right into the program is to do a file new, and I'm going to do a reverse engineer, and we're going to reverse engineer a native direct connection to SQL Server. You can see the other options here for our native or direct connections. That means the client or drivers do not have to be downloaded from those particular platform vendors, that we have them upon installation of Data Architect right with the tool. I'm going to go ahead and choose SQL Server. You can see up here we also have the ability to connect via ODBC. When we get to the Snowflake forward engineering and compare, you'll see I'm connecting via ODBC using the Windows ODBC 64 applet to create a data source name for the Snowflake connection, and it uses the Snowflake client that has been downloaded from Snowflake. So I'm going to go ahead and connect in here. I'm going to use my SA account and password. You can see here real quickly that I could reference a quick launch file if I had one. Is this reverse engineer or something we would repeat? I could save this quick launch out at the end of this dialog, this wizard at page 5, and then reference here on page 1, and I would not have to fill out the ensuing pages. I'm going to go ahead and put in my data source name, which is really this VM 7233 768, if I can type 969. Let's see if I've got that correct. We'll hit next there, and I do. And you see it's gone out and contacted the SQL Server already. It's telling you that I have a database list here. I can use the ellipsis to pick which database I want to get back from that server. I'm going to go ahead and use the training DB. The owner list, likewise, I'm going to use DBO, but I have the ability to change which owner I'm going to bring back, or the schema for which owner. Here is the list of the objects I could choose from to bring back into my model. I'm just going to go ahead and choose user tables for today, and next through here, you can see this is kind of a synopsis of what I'm bringing back, the selected objects. These tabs are gray because I did not select them on the previous page. Important to note here, I could bring back capacity planning information, and I'm using SQL Server, as I said. Had I been reverse engineering another database platform, some of these options change based upon the physical characteristics of the platform that you're connected to. I'm going to go ahead and hit the next here. This is kind of what am I going to do with my primary keys? Am I going to infer them if they're not explicitly defined? Do I want to infer our attribute or column level domains? What kind of layout do I want to do? We're going to choose orthogonal. That's fine. And then next through that, and here's our summary page. What we're doing in another webinar, I'll show you how to apply naming standards. We're not going to do that today, but you could reference your naming standards template here to help flesh out automatically your logical model from the physical naming you might have at the database level. Here's where we could save the quick launch file. I'm going to go ahead and hit finish here. You can see the dialogues here telling us we're going out to SQL Server now, getting the metadata information back. I'm going to close the dialogue out. Now you can see in our model object tree here that we have, I'll collapse it, that we have a logical main model and a physical main model. Important to note here, kind of a differentiator for data architect is we allow from one logical model many different physical models, and each of those physical models can be based on a different platform, and that's what we're going to do today. You're going to see that we're going to have a physical model for SQL Server that we just brought back from the reverse engineering process, and we're going to forward engineer a physical model to Snowflake, and they'll be set both in the same model file. Real quickly, just kind of show you some basic concepts about modeling. It did create the logical model. The logical model and the physical model are drawn out just about the same. The physical model obviously is going to have those physical platform characteristics and data types associated with that platform. Logical is the more general conceptual level with the data elements. You have your entities and attributes here. I want to show you that you can always use the right-click menu. We have the ability to create submodels. Submodels are a way of breaking up very, very large models. Obviously, this demo model is a very, very small one. You could create submodels, and we'll show you that in this other model that I have open. And it's a way of organizing your models maybe into functional areas or functional dependencies that way. And you would do that just by selecting, say, whatever tables you wanted to bring over and actually hit to create there. I'm gonna cancel that out because that's more in depth in another webinar. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that stuff was available. Business data objects is sort of like a submodel, except for their display purposes only. They're for breaking up a model just visually. You create these. You can lump in your different tables if you want to. Say I'll create one for skills here. Put that. I'll actually create this one for us and say okay. And you can see now that I have a business data object for my skills. I could have named it skills. And you have the plus minus sign that allows you to take the model and break it up visually, and so it's much easier to use, or actually much easier to understand, I should say. I'm going to jump into this model here. that is really that same database that we reverse engineer from SQL Server. You can see the same kind of setup here. We already do have a Snowflake physical model. I'm going to go ahead and recreate that so you guys can see how that works. But you can see under the logical model, we have two other submodels. So if we click on the conceptual data model, you can see where we've used business data objects to give a really good view at a conceptual data level of this metadata model. This is something that you could see then later in Team Server and through the web portal, and it gives a view again at the conceptual level for business users to give you a good idea of what's going on and what type of data that this particular model is dealing with. You can see our training model here fleshed out, got the title pane here, got some text in here to describe the model, and you can see how you start with a blank or just a base physical model, and you can bring in and start adding a lot of definition to your logical models to flesh that out and really start turning, as I said before, that data into information. So we're really along that path here. We've got a fleshed out logical model. We've got a training model that's been fully annotated here. So the next step is I'm going to go ahead and create a Snowflake physical model. So the way I would do that is I'll start at the logical level, and I'll go ahead and choose generate physical model there. And we get the generate physical model wizard, as you can see. And I'm just going to call this demo Snowflake physical model, PM. You can see here the target database. We're going to use relational. What's the target database platform? You see there's quite a lengthy list of physical platforms we could choose from that comes built in to the product right out of the box. I'll scroll down. You can see we could create a physical model for any one of these. And as you'll see later, I could connect if I wanted to generate forward engineer, I should say, that physical model to the database. I could connect live or via ODBC, or I could create the SQL DDL to create those databases. And all these different types are supported. I'm going to go ahead and hit Snowflake or select Snowflake here. And so you can see that here, like the reverse engineer wizard, we're able to use a quick launch file that we could set up on the last page of this if this was something we were going to generate time and time again. I'm going to go ahead and hit next here. This is going to show us the objects that we're going to put into our physical model from our logical. They're all selected for you right as you go. Again, we could check the naming standards template here if we wanted to apply that to our physical model. I'm not going to do that today. Again, page 5, a lot like the page 5 on reverse engineer. What are we going to do with our associative entities? And again, it's showing you you're doing this for Snowflake. We chose that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish here. Now you can see over here in our model object pane, I'll shrink this down. Hopefully this isn't too small for you guys, but you can see here that we have the demo SFPM physical model here that we just created for Snowflake. Interesting to note, so now we have a physical model for Snowflake. We could drill into our metadata objects at the physical level, the table EMP. And you can see we start getting physical characteristics for that particular platform. For instance, storage, retention. What type of table is this going to be? Permanent, transient. If it's going to be permanent, what's our retention? You can put retention in days. Another one to show you clustering, how we're going to cluster our keys. All that's part of Snowflake, and ER Studio Data Architect lets you set that up right here. You can see there's many tabs. Won't be going through all these today, but one thing that may be interesting, you can see right there the DDL that's going to be created, or that is created, that'll be run to create this table in a live environment, and it's in Snowflake DDL compatible SQL language syntax, I should say. All right, so I'm gonna I'm going to show you our fleshed out Snowflake training DB model. So that's this is the one that we've done work with that's kind of ready for prime time. It's got the objects that we're interested in to bring over to Snowflake. You can see here we have our views and our sequences, functions, users. So this is pretty much ready to go. So we're going to go ahead. I'll pause here before I do the forward engineer just to see if there's any questions, John, that we need to catch up on. I don't really see any.
I
John?
think I've managed to keep up with most of them.
Okay.
I think we're good to continue for now.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, yeah. It's good to pull that questions part out so you can actually see more than one line. Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'll continue on then. Thanks, John. So we're going to continue on now. Our next step in our journey is, hey, we've got this physical model. We generated for Snowflake. We've put in the physical characteristics for our platform that we want, storage, clustering, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and forward engineer this. So I'm going to do this a couple different ways for you. The first thing I'm going to do is select Generate Database. Generate Database brings up a Generate Database wizard. You'll see this time and again, this same type of wizard technology. And you can see on this page that it gives you a couple options right off the bat. Mostly at your sites, you're going to be pretty much locked down and you're not going to be able to generate database objects straight to a database connection right in the database right on the physical platform. I'm going to do that for this particular demonstration, but you do have the option here to create an SQL file, an RDDL file, and it puts it out. It will put it out right to this this file folder. A lot of times, the customer sites will see that file folder is set to the input folder for your DevOps group or your change control board, however you're handling change control at your site, and that becomes the input for the change control associated with the creation of this this database. So I'm going to go ahead and generate the objects with a database connection live, just so you guys can see that it does connect and work with Snowflake. I'm going to go ahead and choose the ODBC connection. I'm going to choose my pre-created Snowflake ODBC, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my credentials. I think I typed that right. I might have fat fingered it. We'll say okay here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and we are in. So we made a connection here. So here's where sort of like the reverse engineer in reverse, we can forward engineer and you can see which objects do I want to really port over from this model into Snowflake. Got tables, views, stored procedures. I'm just going to select a few of these as we go through. That's probably enough. And schemas, sure. And I want to show you here, it does give you an SQL preview. You can see that the target DBMS is Snowflake here. And it does give you a preview of that DDL that's going to be run. You can save it out as a file or print it from here. Again, I chose the connect to the live database, the forward engineer here. Had you selected just to create the DDL file, you would be just about ready to go with it. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to go ahead and hit finish here. Oh, yeah, I did fat finger that. One second, guys. Connect. I really should choose a smaller password for demos. Let's see if this works. All this should be the same now. And finish. And that looks better. You can see that we have the dialog here. It's gone out. It's going out to Snowflake and creating those objects for us in a physical database. I'll go ahead and close this in my browser here. If I go back, if I refresh this, Yeah, I'm in Snowflake now. I've connected to our Snowflake instance, and you could see here that the training database has been created. That's one I just created, and we have our tables, our sequences there. So it did create that database right in Snowflake. So jump back to my my VM here. Data architect. Oh, I know what I want to do. There we go. All right, so that has taken us through a lot of the story we wanted to cover. We've done a reverse engineer. We've done a reverse engineer and got our SQL Server model back, both in terms of a physical model for SQL Server and then the logical model. We have the logical model, and then we created a Snowflake physical model from it, and we fleshed it out with the physical platform characteristics and elements we wanted, and we forward engineered that to Snowflake, as I showed you. So that's probably time for a pause. The next step is I want to show you kind of compare and merge and how we would propagate changes forward. Is there any questions we need to catch up on, John? Okay.
Just to clarify, actually, Tim, on that one there for Snowflake, you generated the script for Snowflake, didn't you, and then applied it across on the Snowflake environment?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
yes, I did.
That was just one question there that came in around that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. This database, this database right here, I created just now. You can see down here 10:30, 10:28 a.m. So that was what I would just created that. So I did that via a live connection. And I realized that most of you at customer sites with your change control, as I said, you probably won't be generating to a live database unless you're in development or test an environment, something like that. But to production, you would probably create the DDL and ship that off to your DevOps. Anything else, John?
There's a couple on compare and merge, but I think as you're about to show that, we can leave those for now and come back to them if we need to.
Okay, I'll jump into that. So here we are back in Data Architect, and so you know, to catch us back up, so we've gone ahead and we've created this database in Snowflake. Let's pretend for a minute, you know, it's off and running in a production environment, and everything's hunky-dory. Say we have an agile, a sprint. You know, we're going through a development sprint or something, and we need to make changes to the database. We need to add a column to a particular entity. How you would do that in Data Architect is anytime you're thinking about, hey, what are the differences between this model and another model I may have, or hey, how do I get, what's the differences between this model and a live database, physical database, or how do I get changes from one to the other? You want to start thinking your mind right away, compare and merge. What I'm going to do is off our training DB Snowflake, I'm going to go ahead and add a column to our ADR, our ADR table here. And so I'm going to go ahead and put it on the end. So if I didn't put it on the end, basically it would generate alter script. I'm going to go ahead and well, generate alter now. It would actually generate, if I put the column in the middle, would generate drop and recreate of the table. So that's just something to know. So I'm going to create a demo column here. Character 10 is fine. I'm going to say OK. You can see it's there. I'm going to go ahead and say OK here. So now you can see on our ADR table here that we have demo. We have that column there. So typically in the way the software the life cycle would go is you would make this change to a logical, and then you would use compare and merge to bring it into do I have that? Was I in? Okay. I wanted to make sure I was in my Snowflake physical model. You would bring that change from logical to your physical Snowflake model, and then you would bring the change in the physical model out to production or out to your live database. I've made a little shortcut here. I've just updated the physical model address table just for time's sake. So you can see here in our physical model, the demo column is there. So I'm going to go ahead and use the compare and merge utility to propagate that change over to the database. But this time, what I'm going to do is compare it, and I'm going to generate a DDL file. So you can see here, compare and merge will let me compare this model against another model file in this particular file-based DM1 or model file. I could compare it against another model file that I might have on disk locally that I created before. If I have the team or pro version of ER Studio, I could compare it against a repository-based DM1 file or model file. I could compare it against the SQL file. Say it's the SQL file that did the create that I put in the DevOps originally. Or I could compare against a live database. I'm going to go ahead and do the compare against the live database. It's not going to make any changes at this point. It's just going to compare what my model has against what is out there in the live database. I'm going to go ahead and put in my credentials for Snowflake again, if I can type it correctly this time. Let's hope I do. Going to hit next. Showing you some information about who I've connected to, what I'm going to compare against. And I've hit next there. Oh, I don't know why that came back. I probably had the wrong information in there. So let's go ahead and, oh, there it is. Okay, that's funny. All right, so it did come back. I happen to know that that we made a change to the address table there, so I'm going to go ahead and compare that. I'm going to hit next here. It's gone out to Snowflake. It's fetching that. And now we get the compare and merge page 6 page, which is the all-important page. I'll make this a little bigger. You can see that for my current model here, it's found that I have a change between that and the live database. I can expand this out a little bit, and you can see that the column demo exists in my model, but does not exist in the database. So I have a couple options here. I can click in the center, and I can say, hey, what do I want to do? Do I want to merge this into my target? Do I want to delete this from my model? How do I want to handle this? And again, down here, you can see I have the ability to report this out. Say I just run this and run a report, for to put out somewhere for my team to consume, and say, hey, I found these differences between our model and the live database. Which one's correct? Which one do we want to do? Why did why did the DBAs not add this column or had added a column? Whatever the differences are. So if I hit next here, you can see that it's going to create this alter script file. It's going to put it in the file folder that's selected via that little file folder there. If I hit finish here, it's going to give me a couple of prompts saying, hey, do I want to overwrite that file? That's fine. And do I want to load it into our interactive SQL utility? I'm going to say yes. Not that I'm going to execute it now, but I could save this out again for our DevOps, and you can see that it's created the alter script. A very easy little change, added that column, but you can see that it's created that alter table statement, and that's how you would propagate the change from your model through to the live database. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this because you've seen it. So that is pretty much that full story of getting us all the way from reverse engineering the SQL Server database into our physical model and then logical model, and then creating the physical model for Snowflake, forward engineering that database into Snowflake, and then how you would propagate changes based upon your Snowflake model into the Snowflake database that has been created. So another little pause for any questions we need to catch up on, John.
I think I'll just make one comment because we've had a few questions on can we do this for other platforms. So with EOS Studio, we basically support the specific database platform, not a generic platform like AWS, but we can, for example, do this exactly the same thing for Redshift on AWS. We can do exactly the same thing for the Azure technologies on the Azure platform, including Microsoft Synapse as well. So yes, as long as it's a supported platform, we can do the same thing. And as you can see, Tim's showing that there's quite a list of the platforms that we can do that for. And a couple of ones that might be quicker for me to just quickly answer rather than type answers to. Will EOS Studio keep track of model versions? Yes, with our repository, we've got full version control, with checkouts, check-in to make changes to the models, adding comments, adding branches, mergers, also taking named releases to take snapshots of versions as well. So it will maintain a history of that for you with the repository. And I'm just scanning through a few others here.
Sure.
So we might not be able to answer this one fully in the time we've got, but there's a question about creating a conceptual model and navigating from that to the underlying logical model. Within the EOS Studio itself, the data architect, we probably can't easily do that. We can jump between the submodels like Tim's doing here, but you can't click from one model directly to another model. What you can do, maybe, Tim, if you expand one of those business data objects that you got there, so maybe employee.
Well, these are expanded, but
yeah. So
yeah.
you can contract and expand different parts of the model. So one thing you can do, which a lot of customers do for conceptual, is hide the detail away using these things we call business data objects, and you can then expand those to get the detail behind them. And I think if we've got time, Tim is going to show us the web interface. And
Yes,
using the web interface, you can hyperlink and click through from one submodel to another submodel and so on. So there's different ways of achieving that, but it's quite a lot to answer kind of in the short time we have there. So hopefully that's helped. So there's a few others that I think I can crack on with and get answers to as you continue with the demo. Otherwise, I think we'll run out of time. So
okay, that's fine. So I'm gonna show, so the kind of the next tier up, if you remember, was kind of really starting to get into the data governance view with our terms and glossaries, and the connection there is, you can see here, I probably did that too fast for y'all. I'm just clicking into the entity editor on employee in our logical model. And you can see the standard tabs here, but in 18.5, we added the glossary tab. And this glossary tab is going to really be the connection, if you will, the relation between that particular instantiation of that term in your model. So the term here would be employee. We've linked it to the term employee in our human resources glossary. We've done that by adding terms and doing the linkage here. I just wanted to show you that linkage because as I get into Team Server, and I'm going to click into Team Server now, you can see this is our Team Server web portal. It's just a web application. The beauty of this is you don't have to have Data Architect installed on your desktop. If you remember that diagram I showed you or that slide, so for users that may not be data architects or data modelers that were coming in at a business level, maybe it's a data governance person or a management person, they could start looking at our metadata objects at an enterprise level here right through the web. So one thing to show you straight off the bat here is in the R Tools tab, you can see that we have the Model Explorer here, and we have that HR database model that we've been working with. So here, if you hover over these, you can see the thumbnails coming up for each of these. And if I click into, say, the conceptual data model, I can get information right there about it. What I can also do is I can click the eye icon and I have the actual model image. And these aren't just static JPEGs that are sitting there. These are actually hyperlinks. So if I want to say from a data governance view, I want to drill into the employee more, I can drill into that employee table, that employee business data object, and say, okay, hey, this is this is where it's used. This is the entity. Any submodels that I happen to have that entity used in. Any notes. but I also can see the related terms to that employee. So let me go to terms actually and do it this way, because I probably didn't relate it at the conceptual. So we have that employee term. This employee term then is in my human resources glossary. You can notice here that in 19.1 we added the ability to interface in a full two-way interface with Calibra. So if you're going to do if you happen to have Calibra at your site to do your data governance workflow approval and instantiation workflow, you could open this term in Calibra and do that there. That's something that many customers ask for. But back in Team Server here, if I'm a data governance person, I'm looking at my employee term, I can start looking at, hey, what is the employee to my organization? So I can click on the term parents here, and I can see that I've related in the organization an employee to a person to a party. So let's look at party, open that up and look at its children, and then you can see here how we have the entire kind of ontological view of party across the organization. Obviously, these are all active. It's not just a graphic. If I drill into that again, let's go back into my employee term. The other part is here's the kind of the taxonomy or hey, where is employee used across my organization? So if you realize that for a given model at a physical level, you could see you could see that in our training database in Snowflake that the employee term is linked to IMP and the IMP load table. We know from that model what the physical data asset is. You can see that you're starting to get the view here of where employee is used across my entire organization, my entire enterprise, which is very valuable, especially if you're going out there going to create a data warehouse and you want to say, hey, where do I have employee and employer information, and what is an employee to my organization? Is this right? The other thing a data governance person could see is, hey, employee is seen to be used correct, but give you a quick example. What if it was policy and we had an HR model with HR policy, and then we had an insurance model with an insurance policy? Well, we know we have the term policy incorrect there, right? Because an insurance policy is not the same as a human resources policy. So that gives you that view. Of course, we can go into like I said, we could go into the children. If we have any children off an employee there, we have the ability to do glossaries, set up glossaries, and all of this can be exported and imported or linked into Calibra. I'm not going to go too far into Team Server itself, but I wanted to show you that linkage between our models and the Team Server web portal, and that gives us time here at the end for any questions we may want to get into. John, anything there?
Yeah, there's quite a few coming in there actually.
Okay,
so one thing that has came up is about integration with other tools such as Calibra. We've had a few people ask about that. So in the latest version, that is a feature that we've added. So there's two-way integration between business terms inside your Studio Team Server and the Calibra backend. So you can utilize Calibra for workflow and that higher level functionality, and then use your Studio for more of the lower level data modeling and work with it that way. We also plan to partner with some other vendors in that area as we go forward as well. Yeah, Calibra, we've just done that one. One about recordings. Yes, it also is all being recorded, and you'll get a link to be able to view the recording. There's a few that I've answered as well. Not quite sure what this question was regarding. It says, can you show us the multilingual use of business glossaries? In the business terms, it is just running inside the browser, so it does support different code pages and language sets. But each business term, you would potentially have a separate business term for each language translation, but you can structure that in different ways. So we do have some customers who utilize that, particularly. I can think of a couple in France, for example, here in Europe, and I think also in South America and Canada, where they do have definitions that are translated and have those grouped together. But sometimes also they may actually mean different things to different parts of the business. So again, you can kind of structure those by the ontology that Tim spoke about and manage it that way. So a quick scan through again.
I see a question there at the end is, what's the differentiation between ER Studio and say Irwin? That's a very good question. The one we love to illustrate. One of the biggest things right off the bat is, and I was just recently working with a customer that had to do this, is the fact that in one model you can have one logical and many one to many or none, one to many physical models. So you can see here, off this one logical model, maybe it's a corporate conceptual model, maybe at your site you happen to have the same data, but you have it sent to many different customers, maybe on different platforms. In this one metadata model, you can have many different physical models, and each of those physical models can be associated with a different platform. So you can control it all there. Whereas I believe in Irwin, it's a one-to-one relation. So you'd have to have different model files, and the problem there is then you can't roll it all up into one conceptual model to see kind of at the enterprise level how that data works for you. Again, it's all about data to information across your enterprise.
Sorry, I'm just typing a few answers to some others in there as well.
Sure.
Let me see if anything else came in that maybe you can pick up on.
Yeah. I'm trying to look. How do I get the ribbon bar to show multiple models? You mean like I've done here? So I have multiple models open here. So it's not really the ribbon bar as much as.
I think there was a follow-up to that, so I think that's just not showing on that particular user's installation. So I've just suggested that you log that with tech support, and they'll be able to figure out if it's a setting somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably the ones towards the end, Tim, are the ones that we might need to catch up on.
Okay, yeah. It's a little tricky to scroll this down, isn't it? Oh boy, there is a bunch at the end here. Questions. One is glossary entity. Is glossary at the entity attribute level? Can I search for a term in search for a term in the ER tools interface? So you could search in Team Server. Obviously, you could go to terms and search for any term here, if that's what you mean. At the ER tools level, the ER tools is really more about the diagrams themselves and the images. If you go to ER objects, though, which might be what you meant, you can certainly search for terms here, and you can see all the other objects here that you can actually search for. I guess these are the metadata objects. You go to the terms tab to search for terms. So I wonder if that fully answers your question. Okay. Can you do, what's this? It's scrolling so fast. Can you do so at the logical level and then roll up the conceptual? Krishnamurthy's asking, was there another part of that? Oh, okay. So you're answering that, John. Okay. All right. Yes, the recording will be disseminated. If you register to the webinar, you'll go ahead and get an email from our marketing department. Yeah, the performance issues, Bart. Sorry to hear you're having that. That's that'd be a very good tech support case to log at the IDERA support page. I'm sure they could help you with that. Is that possible to map with middleware? Did you answer that one, John? To build an interface layer? I'm not sure what that question's about.
Okay, so let me take a quick stab at that, but again, that's probably quite a complex one.
Okay.
I have actually been working with an organization here in Europe who are very much message oriented. So what they have is inside of your studio, they're building a data model, but they're also building a messaging model where they're using things like entities to represent the attributes of the messages and work with it that way. So we can import from some message technology using what we call the MetaWizard bridge, but it's not really the primary use case with your studio. But we have got customers doing that kind of thing, so it is possible. There's just a few manual tasks that you might need to do to make that work.
All right, time for a couple more. I see a comment by Mark. It says all of this you can get in Calibra. There's kind of an overlap. There is in terms of some of the team server and glossary stuff. So each of the tools kind of fulfill a different niche, Mark. So really, with team terms and glossaries and the workflow, that's a good place for Calibra, and that's why customers have asked us to have team server Calibra integration. What ER Studio gives you is that linkage from the terms in their glossaries back. So if I look up employee again here, and oh, what happened here? Let me go back. Oh, that's because I'm not on terms. Let's look at the employee term here. There we go. What ER Studio gives you is that employee term that you could have done workflow in Calibra with and brought over into Team Server. Now you get the full taxonomy, which Calibra is not going to give you of, hey, where is that term used in my organization? Where in my physical data assets is employee being used, and is it being used correctly? So it's that tie back to the slide I showed you, from the physical layer up through the conceptual layer into your terms and glossaries, and then the workflow would be in Calibra. Hopefully that answers the question for you or explains it. Anything else, John?
There's a few more coming in around domain models and microservice architecture. So again, your studio really is primarily for data modeling. There are ways you can import and represent other object types inside the data models, but everything inside your studio is basically part of the data model. But you can use shapes, you can use the object types to represent other things that you might want to show interactions with in terms of the data model itself. And question as well, just around the glossaries and terms. I have typed in an answer to this, but a few other people have asked. So the terms, the business terms, they are stored in the repository for your studio, but they are separate to the data models. So you can import those directly from things like CSV documents. So if your business users already have a list of those that they want to import, they can do it by that mechanism. And they can also actually edit them and add them directly in the web interface. So if the business is actually managing these definitions, they don't need to have your studio itself installed. They can do it directly from the web interface and by importing definitions that they already have. One thing that is quite nice, if you have got quite mature data models, in particular logical models already, and you've got good definitions and descriptions in the logical layer, we can actually do something called harvesting, where it will take the logical data model and actually generate you a set of default terms based on those definitions within your studio's logical models as well. So there's quite a number of ways that you can create those, but they are separate from the data model, so they can be maintained separately from it as well, without having to have your studio installed. Question about support.
Here's the harvest terms. I was just going to show that real quick. So you saw me probably, hopefully, drill into the address entity. and if I needed to, I could harvest the terms there right from the address entity, and it would allow me to create terms for each one of these objects. Obviously, I can use the ellipsis here to change the name. I can put a definition around it and harvest. It would harvest anything I've selected here. So that's a way you can quickly build out your terms and your glossaries. Okay, we're almost at the end of the hour here. Maybe time for a quick couple. I will jump back into this.
Okay. So there's a few questions around kind of support for different technologies. So again, at the moment, technologies like Google BigQuery and some of the Amazon technologies, and Apache technologies, things like Parquet and so on, we can import those as objects into the data model, but we don't currently support them for forward engineering. So you'll be able to use your studio to document those systems by doing the import, but you can't generate code or JSON directly to update, the actual systems themselves. We do look at the market, constantly in our product management team, have a roadmap in place for your studio, and we get input from our customers, from what's happening in the marketplace, from analysts and so on, as to the platforms that we need to support and move on those. I think that's probably most of them, Tim. There's a few others that are kind of, I think, a bit repetitive of what we've already shown and answered.
Got almost no time here, but can you please once again show the drill down workaround to go from conceptual to logical to physical? I think we talked a little bit about that, Krishna. If you didn't get that answered, please let us know. We can maybe send you some more information on that. But that's all about the creation of the logical model from the physical model that happens completely automatically on a reverse engineer, and then.
Yeah, you will get the link to the recording, so I guess you can replay that part where Tim showed
Right.
that and just follow it through a bit more slowly.
Okay, so we're at right at an hour. Thank you all for attending this. There's some information and links on the screen there for you. You can do a snippet and copy those out, and so you can access them yourselves. And on behalf of John and myself, I'd like to thank you for attending the webinar. And you guys have a great rest of the day.
Yep, thanks everyone.